welcome to the Newsmaker Show. I don't think there is a lot of doubt, although maybe there is, about the fact that there's a war on Christmas. All you got to do is go into certain chain stores, and you'll find out they're not allowed to say Merry Christmas. They're not going to put up anything that would indicate that it's the birth of Jesus. It's just a chance to make some money. So today we're going to be talking to Kyle Olson with the Education Action Group in Muskegon, Michigan. And we're going to talk about this war, which some people deny. Let's see if their denials will hold any water. Stay tuned.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
All right, Kyle Olson out there in Muskegon. How do you spell Muskegon?
Muskegon.
Well, just like it sounds.
Yeah.
Indian name, I assume?
It is.
Yeah, okay. Where are you from, Kyle?
This is where I'm from.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How big is Muskegon? That's an interesting name. I've always been curious about that.
It's about probably 50,000.
Yeah, okay. Kyle, I know that you've written something about, interestingly enough, Nicholas Elementary School in Texas, but it's only symbolic and symptomatic. Tell me what happened in Nichols Elementary School in Texas.
Yeah, what we've been seeing around the country is school districts, they're moving away from Christmas. Kids can't say Christmas. School calendars don't say Christmas. We're saying holiday, but in this particular case in Texas, they were having, they scheduled a winter party. So they don't even call it a holiday party anymore. They call it a winter party. And some ground rules were laid down for the party that the teachers would be having in their classrooms. They couldn't have red. They couldn't have green. They couldn't have a Christmas tree. They couldn't make a reference to a religious holiday. Kids couldn't say Merry Christmas. And so to me, this is just the latest example of the secular progressive war on traditional values, war on Christianity. And so, we hear people talk about the war on Christmas, and to me that's really kind of a manifestation of this broader effort to stamp out traditional values and a reliance on God.
Take out the MAS. It's really a war on Christ, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And that's the I think, unfortunately, the value set that we see in a lot of schools across the country. Again, it's the secular progressive value set where there's moral relativism, where there's this move towards political correctness and multiculturalism and all of those things. And so when that is the culture, these are the sorts of decisions that are made.
Okay, now you've thrown around some interesting terms, and I think it would be helpful to tell me what you and our listeners, what you mean by those terms.
Yeah, well,
secular. Let's start with secular. Then we'll go to progressive.
Sure. Well, secular, of course, is
worldly, of this world.
Yeah, that's right. Versus Christianity or Judaism or some other religion.
Or anything transcendental, right.
Correct.
Progressive.
Progressive is another term for liberalism, but to me it signifies people who want control. They want to be able to control our lives, whether they're Republicans, because they're progressive Republicans, like Michael Bloomberg is a good example of that, or if they're Democrats, of course, are progressives. But this idea that we have politicians, we have people in control who believe they know how to live our lives better than we do.
And we're seeing that, of course, in Obamacare, which is a gigantic flop, and I predict will be a bigger flop after the first. Right. All right, now here's another term you used, and I think it's helpful to know what you mean by it, moral relativism.
Well, when you are a Christian or when you affiliate with a particular, most religions, I would say, you're looking to a higher power for moral absolutes, for direction, for how you should live your life. But when that sort of higher power or a moral absolute is absent, then you're looking to other human beings, and you compare yourself and you say, well, I'm not as bad as that person. Or, there's relativism that's going on. And that's the sort of mindset and value set that's being pushed in schools. And so, because it's this political correctness that's going on in schools that I think is really damaging the direction that we're going.
Well, off the top of my head, and it's not something I just thought of now, I would have to say that these secular progressives, these moral relativists, are winning the culture war.
Sure.
You agree?
I do, unfortunately, because they hold the positions of power and the positions of influence. I mean, the left was very smart in taking over the media, taking over K-12 education and higher education, taking over the teacher training colleges, taking over the media and Hollywood and those things. So they were very smart in that, because those are the institutions that influence culture, that influence America. And so they were very smart in doing that. But of course, progressives control the halls of power as well, in terms of school boards, Congress, state legislatures. And so, I think that's why we're seeing these sorts of policies implemented, but then also not challenged by those in power, because it's the same value set that they subscribe to.
Now, let me ask you a question that I think is extremely important. We know these people have an agenda. We know they're working it very, very effectively, to the point where even Christians and devout Jews or whatever are almost afraid to speak up. But have they made this a law? I mean, is it really a law that you can't say Merry Christmas in a public school?
No, it's not a law, but I think what's happening is there is this has become the dominant culture, I think, in schools across the country, and what happens is a couple things. One, parents feel that if they speak out, then their child or their children will be marginalized, or retribution will be taken out against their child or children.
And it will. Yeah. Let's not forget that it will. All right, go ahead.
Or they feel like if they do stand up and say something, nothing will change. I'm in cases where, say a student or a teacher does something to a student, and if there's attention brought to that, chances are pretty good that teacher will not lose their job. They won't be held accountable, and so I think a lot of parents will say, then why even bring it up? I mean, why make a big deal out of this when nothing will ultimately change, and actually it could just boomerang and make our lives worse. And so I think to a large degree, parents feel helpless, and they don't feel that they are empowered to actually make a difference. I mean, there was a story just today that I read where a teacher, it was last year, was found guilty of putting crayons in hot sauce and then feeding them to her special education students. The school district fired her, but a judge just reinstated her, so she got her job back.
Good.
Those are the sorts of things that happen across the country. And another one that we just wrote about was a horrible case in Michigan where a teacher raped a student, pled guilty. He admitted to it, pled guilty. He's now sitting in a Michigan prison, but the union filed a grievance because he was supposed to get a $10,000 severance, and the school district did not pay it to him. And so the union's trying to go to arbitration to get the admitted rapist $10,000. Those are the sorts of things that are going on in schools that I think are absolutely shameful. But it shows the value set, but it shows the focus of the unions and the bureaucracy, that those are the sorts of things that they focus on, instead of what can we do to put students first, to deliver a high-quality education for every child in America.
We'll be back with Kyle Olson and more of these horror stories, and they are horrible, in just a moment.
'Tis the season to grab the best deals of the year during the Big Finish 2013. Going on right now at Maple City Dodge. Maple City Dodge wants to move out every 2013, and they are making monster holiday deals. The popular 2013 Rams have huge discounts. Get one for under the tree. Wouldn't he love that? And the 2013 Dodge Dart has a rebate of up to $2,000. Holy cow! The 2014s have great rebates too. Chrysler Town & Country Touring has up to $2,500 in rebates. The 2014 Chrysler 200 has up to $3,500 in rebates. The 2014 Dodge Avenger has up to $3,000 in rebates. And hold on to your Santa hat, even the 2014 Jeep Cherokee has a $500 rebate. It's unheard of. And hurry, the Jeep Cherokees are flying off the lot. It's a blizzard of rebates at Maple City Dodge. So tell Santa you have been nice and get a new vehicle. See the Dodge boys, Gary, Jim, Russ, Larry, and Dale for your new vehicle. Maple City Dodge in Hornell. Visit them online, maplecitydodge.net.
It's the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480 WLEA.
Talking to Kyle Olson of the Education Action Group. Not a pretty story. I'm going to use another term here for these secular progressives. The pagans are winning. Folks, they are winning. And there aren't enough. I think the majority of the people in this country still believe in God. All the surveys show that. They still don't want perverted people teaching their kids. They still prefer to have Christmas. Yeah, that's all true. But despite the overwhelming majority in our country, they're getting to our kids and brainwashing them over 12 years. You know, here in New York now, the kids are being taught that gay marriage is equivalent to marriage. And they're going to grow up believing that. And I don't know what you got in Michigan yet, but if you haven't, they'll get to you because they're relentless. Kyle, this war against Christ isn't confined to the educational system. Isn't it true that it's also a pretty big part of the Obama administration?
Yeah, I mean, we see this, I think, across all sectors of power. Again, whether it's those in elected office or if it's the media or Hollywood or education, we see this across the spectrum. That and what's interesting to me is because we look at these teacher training programs, whether it's the colleges or whether it's the conferences that teachers go to, and just some of the things that are spewed, frankly, at some of these. I mean, they actually, some of the trainings that we have watched, they actually say that Christianity is a manifestation of capitalism, and we need to attack Christianity and attack capitalism because, and then they get into all the typical rhetoric about oppression and holding the poor down and all of that business. But the point is, those are the sorts of things that teachers are exposing themselves to or being exposed to, and then they come back to the classroom and then they pass that sort of quote-unquote knowledge off to students as fact. Those are the sorts of things, unfortunately, that are going on in schools in America. And so I think that's why it's so critical that parents know what's going on in their kids' classrooms, know what the lesson plans are, what the textbooks are saying, what the videos are saying, all of those things, because it is a real war, and parents need to be aware of what's going on.
Are you optimistic that let's call it the good guys and the pagans, that the good guys are going to win this culture war, or do you think it's pretty much all over? I'm kind of a pessimist, but I want to hear what you have to say.
It's amazing to me that we've lasted this long in terms of conservatism, in terms of traditional values, given that the institutions are so stacked against us. But I think it's because people tend to see through the sort of nonsense that's going on. But the other issue, too, is the activists are very intentional about getting to students at younger and younger ages, and pushing these issues at younger and younger ages, whether it's the sex ed issues or it's the economic issues, or whatever the case may be, they're trying to get to kids at younger and younger ages, because they want to get to kids that aren't scrutinizing, that don't see baloney when
they're kids. They're kids, right? Yeah.
And they just soak these things up as like a sponge. Mm-hmm. And so that's again why I say parents need to be vigilant, because the schools that we went to are not the schools the way the schools are today, and parents need to be aware of that. Whether it's Common Core, whether it's the lesson plans, whatever it is, parents need to know what is going on.
Listen, in fairness, we should point out that many teachers, who are also parents in most cases, but many teachers don't agree with this, but their jobs are on the line. We have a school system right around here, I won't mention any names, but I know that there are teachers in that district who are very much against Common Core. I think most teachers are, in fact. But they've been warned by their superintendent, keep your mouth shut, and they are. I don't know why they're afraid, because they have tenure, but again, it's a threat.
Yeah, I mean, we encourage, in fact, my wife and I did this when we were looking at schools. Look at all of the schools in your area, the traditional public school, charter schools, private schools. Look at all of them and look at what the mission is there. Are the adults at the center of the mission, or are the children at the center of the mission? What is the ideological perspective? What sort of lesson plans and those sorts of things are kids going to be exposed to? It's really critical that parents go through that process when selecting a school for their child, because it is such a critical decision. Because just because you may live in a quote unquote conservative area, or somewhere that is rural or whatever, does not mean that kids are not going to be exposed to this sort of activist mentality and pushing these sorts of secular progressive issues on kids. So parents need to know what's going on.
And then they have to have the courage to try to take control. They can do it. They can really do it by controlling the school board, although the state has, in this particular state, the state has probably more say than the local school board. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
How is Common Core doing in Michigan, by the way?
Well, it went through they supposedly went through the scrutinizing process. It is now it's being implemented in Michigan schools like it is in 44 other states. Mm-hmm. But I think what it's going to do is it's going to make there's no incentive for a state like Michigan or New York or California or anywhere else. There's no incentive to improve. There's no incentive to try and outcompete a neighboring state or another state, because everyone's the same now through Common Core. And it's just, to me, it's dumbing down the standards in a lot of states. It's standardizing education, and it will impact homeschooling. It will impact private schools. We're seeing that with Catholic schools. Some Catholic schools are voluntarily adopting Common Core because they don't want to be left behind. That's the sort of language that they use.
Which is dumb too, yeah.
And that's implying that somehow the public schools are leaving behind the Catholic schools. I mean, that's just insane.
Just the opposite, yeah.
Exactly.
Kyle, you've got a great battle. I don't know how you keep going, because it's like a guy in the ring with Rocky Marciano getting belted all over the place and still standing up. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you. We're fortunately not the only ones fighting.
Keep up the vital work.
Thank you very much.
All right, Kyle, thank you very much. Kyle Olson of the Education Action Group. Now, I was going to let him tell you about his website, but if you just Google Education Action Group, you'll find it. And these people are doing vital work fighting the minority, which is trying to control the overwhelming majority of people who want Christmas, who want Christmas carols. By the way, I was at Alfred University a week or so ago, and for a concert by their symphony. I don't know if they call it their symphony or not, but it was a wonderful concert in a wonderful hall, and at the end of it, they sang Christmas carols. And they ended with, it's not a Christmas carol, but they ended with, we wish you a Merry Christmas. So you see, you don't have to fall for all of this stuff, but most people will roll over, sadly. Now, stay tuned for more news and information on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Hornell.